studio execs, whoever greenlit this film as a two-parter, and then basically said, "Oh, we'll wait till to see how it does." I got no respect for you, honestly.
Hey, you. Put on some muscle?
I did?
No.
What's up, YouTube? Drive-By Movies here, and you are watching
Fresh Releases.
My name is James.
My name is Blaze.
And today we are checking out the Denis Villeneuve thriller that is supposed to be the next big sci-fi thing, Dune.
Will you protect Paul?
With my life.
Only together can we stand a chance.
It's time.
Dune is the feature adaptation of Frank Herbert's science fiction novel about the son of a noble family entrusted with the protection of the most valuable asset and most vital element in the galaxy, spice. So James, Dune has been in the works for, I feel like, as long as I could remember, whether it was, this version or, multiple iterations. You even have a documentary about Jodorowsky's Dune, which is entertaining, but basically nothing was ever there for that film to get set in motion. So it's kind of a film about nothing, it feels like at some time. But they eventually made their first iteration of Dune with David Lynch. There's a lot of controversy around that film. He wanted to take an Alan Smithy and take his name off the production. Basically, at this point in time, he doesn't ever really want to even talk about that production because it was such a negative experience in his life, and has a ton of trauma from that experience. But basically, this is probably the greatest iteration of Dune that we've gotten in our lifetime. Hopefully for the rest of ever, but anyways, that's at least how I feel about it. How do you feel about this film?
Yeah, so I've always wanted to check out the David Lynch one. I haven't gotten around to it. Mainly just want to check out because I hear it's like quite popular with the cult fans and stuff, and I know it's not popular with Dune fans, but I don't really know anything about Dune other than that movie. I know that it's a popular book, and Star Wars kind of like stole some thoughts and ideas from it, and we can get into that too because there are a lot of similarities between Star Wars and Dune. As well as I know that there was a Sci-Fi Channel original like mini series too, and I think it helped launch the career of James McAvoy. I think he's like in one of the like sequels or something with that one. And not that it sounds like I know a lot about Dune, but that's all I know for the most part. But yeah, I went in like not that interested in it. I wasn't too blown away by the trailers for the most part, and it was supposed to come out last year, so we've been seeing trailers for this movie for a couple of years now. And I just thought it was weird that Denis Villeneuve, after doing Blade Runner, like I thought that was going to be his big sequel sci-fi thing and kind of stay away from like franchise movies, but here he is with a big franchise thing. And I'm still like thinking about like how I feel overall about this movie, but it was one of the most like fun experiences I ever had in a theater and stuff. It was just like a packed theater. It was like silent. Everyone was just interested and no one was talking. I was just like enthralled by it and stuff. Like there's still a lot of questions I have, and I like it's like an incomplete story for the most part, but I enjoyed what I saw like crazy though. Like I like it felt like one of the best cinematic experiences I've had since Mad Max Fury Road, I'd say.
Yeah, definitely. I thought that there's a lot there for this film, and something that this film is like, a lot of people are talking about the long run time, and definitely I haven't seen the word, or at least I haven't seen it yet, the word boring being thrown around, which I always kind of find interesting for a movie that has a long run time.
Yeah.
At least somebody's got to think it's boring, but for some reason I haven't seen that being thrown around too much. So I think that's a good thing. I definitely wasn't bored, and by the end of the film, it almost feels like the beginning of the movie, and that's kind of, I think, the most disappointing thing for me about this movie. And it actually doesn't have to do with anything about the production itself, the film. It's really just, guys, seriously, we basically made a movie, and they kind of like hedge their bets on like, oh, we're not gonna green light part 2 until this movie does well on HBO Max. And that's really one of my biggest gripes about this film, is the producers of this film, or whether it's the studio. Maybe I'm not going to throw the producers under the bus, but the studio for sure, studio execs, whoever greenlit this film as a two-parter and then basically said, oh, we'll wait till it's to see how it does. I got no respect for you, honestly, because you have no balls. Like, you're really going to greenlight a movie that literally just feels like a part 1. Can you imagine if we saw Lord of the Rings, Peter Jackson's Fellowship of the Ring, and then at the end they're like, oh, it didn't do that well, you're not gonna get another. Yeah. This movie would have been such a cop-out, like, and that could have happened here. Okay, they did greenlight Dune 2 this past week or last week.
They did.
But
all right, that's an exclusive reaction for me. I'm actually excited.
Yeah.
Cool, I did not know that.
Yeah, but like Warner Brothers and Legendary, they're trying to act like they want a fucking cookie. Like, no, you guys don't get any respect from me. Like, okay, oh, you greenlit it, wow. Like, first of all, just it's just disrespectful for them. Like, they didn't bet. Like, at least bet. If you're gonna be in like making movies, at least be a betting man. At least believe in what you're creating. I'm sure Denis Villeneuve believed in this movie. I'm sure pretty much everyone that worked on this in any professional capacity believed in this movie. But the studio and Legendary and Warner Brothers, they wanted to see how it did first, guys, on HBO Max. Not even in theaters. They want to see how it did first. So That's the one thing I think is the most ridiculous about this movie. And I haven't heard anyone talking about that, but it's just really ridiculous that you would make a film that's literally a part 1 that almost feels like it almost feels like this film basically ends with the beginning of the hero's journey. Yeah. Which is really exciting. And the film itself, it should honestly feel slow. It should feel boring because look at the runtime. But he does such a great job of tactfully getting you invested into the story, and it doesn't feel like those things. And you really do want to see a part 2. But I have to say, when the credits started, or the title screen shows Dune Part 1, I'm like, I do remember this being a 2-part thing, but I haven't heard at all. And all the posters and promotional material for this film have said Dune. They haven't said Dune Part 1. Because we're getting literally copped out. Like, they wanted us to act like this was like we're only seeing one movie here that's gonna have the full story. Mm-hmm. And no, that's not, we find that out by the end of the film. Like, this is just the beginning. And it would have been really disheartening if this was also just the end. But thankfully it isn't. But no, I'm not gonna give any props to the studio or Legendary for, green lighting it now that the film is finally out. At least believe in what you're gonna create. Come on.
Right, yeah, that's actually, I'm very surprised because I was very worried after watching. I was just like, I can't believe, we might not get a sequel. So I'm actually really excited that it was greenlit. This is actual, genuine, exclusive news that I'm just barely finding out. So I'm excited. But yeah, walking in though, I knew Denis Villeneuve signed into this movie specifically saying if he's going to do this movie, he wants to tell it in 2 parts and stuff. But I knew going ahead that they didn't film it in 2 parts. I'm like, all right, that's your big mistake right there. They should have took it like Lord of the Rings, or even as bad as you weren't into Halloween Kills. Like, they couldn't even do that. Like, they did it for Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends. They shot those back to back. Why couldn't you shoot these back to back and stuff? Like, I'm as I said earlier, I'm not familiar with the story of Dune. Maybe there's a time jump to where it'll work out perfectly well and stuff. But Timothy and Zendaya and stuff, they're pretty young actors and stuff. Like, I think this movie is going to take, I assume, at least 8 months to film, then special effects, and then promotion and stuff. Like, we might not get this movie for 2 to 3 years. And that was one of the things that worked against It Chapter 2. I thought, I was just like, you guys waited too long. The kids look terrible. The CGI is bad, even though they had the higher budget for that movie and stuff. And it's just weird that they went in that direction again. Like, why are you telling these epic stories? And you're just hoping that it's going to work out and stuff. Like, I'm glad it's working out. I'm glad that it worked out for you guys. Like, you had the #1 horror film of all time opening box office weekend. Then you have this sci-fi thriller or sci-fi movie that has such great reviews, and one that has one of the best directors working today on it, and he wants to come back. But just the idea that they didn't bank on it and stuff, I'm just like, come on, Legendary. You guys put all this money towards the Monsterverse and stuff. Put it towards the filmmakers and stuff versus the franchise, because the Godzilla franchise isn't performing as big as they hoped and stuff. I'd rather see more from Denis Villeneuve and just them to invest whatever the F he wants to do versus me being disappointed by Godzilla movies when Godzilla's my superhero.
Yeah, and 100%, that's really the problem. I would say overall with the way that the studio system has gone is that they aren't very much interested at all in what filmmakers have to offer. It's more just what franchises do people remember? That's all it is. It's not what franchises are the most interesting, or we can tell the most stories, or the most interesting stories, or the coolest stories, or whatever. It's what do people remember? And quite frankly, there was no like barometer, and that's what they need. They treat the studio system like a stock market, and there's no barometer for how much, stock does Dune hold. Do people even know the novel? Do children know the novel? I mean, they have some young actors in this cast. Are people really gonna come out because Timothée Chalamet or Zendaya are in this if they don't know what Dune is? Like,
right?
I mean, even my knowledge of Dune isn't that extensive, but it's really, for me, it was like, okay, I think we've talked about it in the past. Like, Denis Villeneuve only hits home runs. This is another home run that we've seen. I mean, I hope that his batting average just keeps going up, but it just seems disrespectful to filmmakers that the studio and they didn't believe in the filmmaker. It was just, is this film franchise, even though it hadn't become one yet, does that hold any stock or any weight in this nostalgia factor? Mm-hmm. So that's I think really one of my biggest takeaways from this movie, because the movie itself is awesome. I really enjoyed it. I watched it at home, which I felt like this was one of those movies where everyone's gonna say, oh, you need to watch this in a theater. But I honestly felt like even at home that maybe even a theater wouldn't have done this film as much service as I would have thought it would have.
I mean, yeah, I totally get that. I mean, I'm actually looking forward to watching on HBO Max again and stuff. Like, that is one of the things, like, I paid for it once and stuff. Like, I love that I can now watch it through the convenience of my home and stuff. And that is one thing, like, with Dune not having that big of a following, like, at least the people who, like, never would have paid to go see it, as long as they're checking out on HBO Max, I hope that worked in its favor. And hopefully, it seems like it did. Like I said, we are going to get to see that sequel and stuff, but hopefully sooner rather than later. And I hope they don't rush it too. Like, I hope they still take their time with the script. Maybe the script is already done, but I'd still like to see at the end of the day the second one being as good as this one. I see that Denis Villeneuve says that the second one will be the more action-packed version of this saga, but can't wait for it and stuff too. But yeah, just visually, just like seeing this and stuff in theaters. I saw it at the Universal City Walk IMAX, and that's a true IMAX theater, so it was really cool. It was my first time experiencing black bars and then jumping to the 4:3 IMAX conversion and stuff every once in a while. But like seeing when it was that 4:3 IMAX resolution and stuff, though not technically 4:3, but it's closer to look like 4:3. Just seeing that though, it was like still stunning, and just feeling the chairs shake and stuff. It was such a fun experience, and seeing people like actually be into the movie as a sold out show. Like, and I cannot hold my bladder whatsoever, but like this is a movie where I was just like, nope, I'm not going to the bathroom and stuff. And every scene, even though it might be like a little dull and a slow paced movie, like every scene was pretty important for the most part and was super interesting, and just I couldn't take my eyes away.
Yeah, definitely. The only negative I will say about this film, and it really has nothing to do with the actual film itself, it's really just the fact that because this took so long to become something, there's so many like films that have come out since then. I mean, we can even reference Star Wars that have kind of ripped off the novel, or just borrowed from it, or are told in stories that are similar or use similar stuff, that this film almost feels like I think Denis Villeneuve and like the filmmakers made this movie still feel fresh in an environment in which a lot of this stuff has already been used before, has already been told before, and it should honestly feel well trodden, and it shouldn't feel fresh and original. And this kind of felt like that. The one thing I will say is I'm generally really uninterested in anything that takes place in the desert, but there's literally no way to make this movie without that, But like, I feel like we've gotten so many post-apocalyptic movies or stories that take place in the desert, and it's just so boring. And it's honestly a blessing that this wasn't one of those. Yeah, definitely. I can usually fall asleep during any kind of desert setting movie, but somehow Mad Max and this, and a couple Westerns have kept me enthralled, luckily. And yeah, like this is definitely a movie I'm gonna rewatch a couple times and stuff.
Like, can't wait. Like, I was, some of my favorite moments, I'd say, are just like any scenes where the villains were on screen and stuff, the Baron and stuff. Like, even though, like, you know, the Baron, like, I know it's played by Stellan Skarsgård and stuff, just like, I was just really uncomfortable watching him and seeing how evil he is, and I want to see him play like a bigger role in the next movie as well too. But just like the visuals inside his hideout and stuff, and like the music playing, and just the sound design within this movie was just so fun to see and stuff.
Definitely, yeah. Honestly, this is a movie that I can't wait for the next one, and probably I'm actually kind of excited that there's only going to be 2 parts. I can't say that I'm interested in this HBO series that's gonna, like, honestly, I think I'm only interested in this vision. I don't really care about the whole like Dune universe or those stories.
Right.
It's really just this vision as a whole. Like, I think it's really been executed really well. It looks beautiful, and I think that all the storytelling is really there. I'm not really interested in that. The whole, I know like HBO Max wants to get behind the fact that, oh, there's gonna be a new Dune TV show. It's like, dude, I don't care. Like, you guys didn't even want to greenlight a second part of this movie until last week after the film had debuted for the weekend. So it's just like, come on, guys, try and cash in now.
I was unaware of that, and I'm a little like, I don't know if I want to see spin-offs of this and stuff. Like, we're gonna get like a Mandalorian spin-off now, like, oh great, and stuff.
It's just cringe, honestly. Yeah. Like, it's just cringe. Like, y'all didn't believe in it until you had proof that it was gonna do well, and now you're like, oh yeah, now we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that. It's like, just come on, dude.
Yeah.
Come on. Grow some balls, seriously.
Yeah. Come on, Legendary. Like, for a while, it was like Legendary was one of like the studios was like, yeah, thanks for like putting out some interesting stuff, guys. But playing it safe here a little bit. But yeah, like Dune, it seems to be getting rave reviews. I know it's not for everyone. Apparently everyone's talking crap about Marvel fans these days, which I love to see. Marvel fans are not a fan of this movie and stuff. So what did you guys think of the movie? Are you a Marvel fan? Are you not a Marvel fan and still dislike this movie? Let us know in the comments. Tell us what you thought about the movie. You can now check it out through HBO Max currently or in theaters.
Yeah, and if you haven't already, guys, go ahead and smash that like button, hit the subscribe button, and click that notification bell to get all of our latest updates.
And if you can't get enough of us here on YouTube, be sure to check us out on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. You can catch all our links down below in the description box. Anyways, guys, that'll conclude this week's episode. Tune in next week for a brand new video.